This gameplay video is brought to you by very generous patron Shuffles. Queen Marchesa versus Joyra Weatherlight Captain. And we've got a decent hand there, some card draw removal, plenty of lands to make, so we'll keep that one. I'm going to get rid of the tap land in Bajuka Bog. And then, speaking of tap lands, we will get one out with the Arid Mesa. That can be the Tricycle land, I think. And then our opponent just plays out a fetch of his own. We will get round to our turn, and it is just going to be the Knight's Whisper. That is draw 2 and lose 2, and alright, the Young Pyromancer is really good. Just a Felwar Stone from our opponent, seems as though they are passing the turn at that, does mean that we'll likely see Joyra next turn though. And there is an Enlightened Shooter for us, so we'll get down a white source, and the Young Pyromancer here I think, then we can either go for Dismember on the Joyra, or we can go Enlightened Shooter. And there we see, they have managed to make a land, so let's see if they go for their commander. They don't have any counter magic backup seemingly, unless it's free counter magic of course, so yeah, in response to the Lion's Eye Diamond we will certainly go for Dismember, paying 2 lots of Phyrexian mana, which is 4 life, make ourselves an elemental token in the process. And I wouldn't mind exiling that Lion's Eye Diamond because it's part of a combo with the, I can never remember the name of it, Underworld Breach or something like that. I'll put it up on the screen. Another land for us. We'll just throw down the Jewel Source, and I think I definitely want to get rid of the Lion's Eye Diamond now. I don't know what they've got in hand, so I am worried about them comboing off straight away with that. Let's just exile it. They're not going to sacrifice and discard it in response. And then we'll just Lightning Bolt our opponent with our 2 creatures. Thinking Skullclamp for the Enlightened Shooter, seeing as how we have the elementals in play. Alright, there's Urza. We do have an answer to that in D-Spark at least. Urza's a pretty scary one. Not seen too many artifacts yet though. Our opponent might be saving them for when the Joyra sticks. Although there's another one in the Star Compass, so we will crack for a Scrubland. And we'll go for the Enlightened Shooter right now, obviously triggering the Pyromancer again. And like I said, we'll put the Skullclamp on top. And then Summoning Sickness isn't affected by Urza's ability, so able to tap their creature down and the rock for 2 mana, and that is a Spellskite. We can still use the D-Spark because D-Spark isn't a legal target for Spellskite. So yeah, we'll go for the D-Spark here. Otherwise we could go for some different types of removal with the Skullclamp, but Spellskite could always eat that. It's not likely that they'll be able to do anything about this D-Spark, I don't think. I'll try and get anyway, paying the 2 life into the Spellskite. That's not a legal target for it, because D-Spark can only target something with 4 CMC or greater. So still gets rid of the Urza, they take 2 life for nothing there. And then with our floating mana we can go Skullclamp. Turn everything in sideways, there's no power on the Spellskite, so we'll just force some extra points of damage through here, take them down to 20. And then it is Skullclamp onto one of the tapped creatures. And we'll likely Skullclamp again after this. Liliana and a Tutor, some nice draws here. Alright, another Tutor, and the Abrade can likely get rid of the Spellskite so that we can start targeting whatever we want to target. Our opponent's not missing out on lands at least, they do manage to get their Joyra back into play. So, okay, Mutavault for us to help get the Monarchy back after a board wipe. Obviously it's a land as well. I think we Tutor for some removal for Joyra. It'll probably have to be a Swords or a Path. Swords would be better. I'd like to Oubliette the Joyra, but we want to Abrade the Spellskite as well. So, Demonic Tutor for a Swords to Plowshares here. And then we'll throw down the Mutavault so that we can tap it for the generic mana. Can't make it into a creature yet, so we'll just use it for mana. And that mana can go into Abrade, making great use of the Young Pyromancer this game. So that gets Spellskite out of the way, which frees us to go for Swords to Plowshares onto the Joyra. And then we're not going to be swinging in against the Construct token. So we'll just clamp, and there is a lightning helix that can get that out of the way for us potentially. Got some planeswalker removal in the new knight as well. I've actually just replaced the heroic downfall with that one. And as soon as we see the planeswalker removal, the Narset part of the Veils comes into play. So hoping that they're going to switch off our skull clamp, no doubt. It would switch off the monarchy as well. They get that Underworld Breach into hand, so luckily we got rid of the Lion's Eye Diamond previously. And we can get rid of the Narset without using any cards in our hand at the moment by going wide. Assuming that they don't have any kind of removal for the tokens. Dam is the replacement for Damnation in this deck, because it's a modal Damnation and Wrath of God. Let's go straight through to combat, and the elementals are going to go in towards Narset. So they obviously block one to get rid of it, and down goes the Narset, so they didn't have any bounce or anything. So I think we're okay to get down at Liliana of the Veil here. We can start attacking their hand, or I think it would be good to get rid of that construct so that we can, well, we've got more chance of going wide on them. Keep peppering away at their life total. This deck tends to be death by 1,000 cuts, so the more we can remove their stuff, the better for us. Let's continue to draw cards with Clamp now that the Narset has gone down. Okay, and we can hold up that white removal spell by putting a permanent on top of the library. And at the end of the turn, they sacrifice some mana in order to draw a card, so that looks like a desperation attempt to me, which is really good. And speaking of combo pieces, there's a grinding station. I'm not entirely sure what they can do with that. I'm not sure which pieces we'd have to look out for, but I don't think they can combo off with it just yet, so we'll wait on the Unexpectedly Absent. Okay, and there's the Underworld Breach. That's the thing I'm more concerned about at the moment. They don't have too much in the bin at the moment, but Grinding Station can soon do something about that. So sacrificing a rock in order to mill. I think in response to that, I will go for Unexpectedly Absent onto the Underworld Breach as opposed to the Grinding Station, because they can mill all they want, but if they can't actually cast the things from the bin, then won't be of too much concern to us. So Unexpectedly Absent onto the Underworld Breach, going back on top. Obviously not a permanent solution, but might buy us a turn here. But unfortunately, looks like we're going to see the first counterspell from Joyra. Yep, so that will allow them to keep the enchantment in play, but they don't actually have mana to do anything now. So yeah, just going straight through to the end step and through to our turn, so didn't have anything to worry about there apparently. Forcing them to use up mana. We'll plus on the Liliana straight away. Each opponent discards a card, or each player discards a card I should say, and we were going to discard Dam, but our opponent decides to call it a day there. Oh, and they're actually a friend of the channel. Sorry, I didn't check the chat until the last second there, so big thank you to Akka for playing. Apologies for not responding during the game, I genuinely just didn't see the chat. I don't always look at it, so big thank you to Akka for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, hopefully the rest of you enjoyed it as well, and I think we can fit another one in. Queen Marchesa versus Nicol Bolas the Ravager this time, and that is a decent hand. We're going to have almost all of our colours, so we will keep. And our opponent starting things off really quickly, a Portent. And they do draw during our upkeep with Portent, so we'll get on with our turn. A Loyal Apprentice is a turn 1 play for us, so we'll go for that along with the Soul Guide Lantern. And that will exile the Portent that's in the graveyard as well. Our Loyal Apprentice has haste, so we'll swing in with a 2-1. Argument to be made for us going for a white source with this. Yeah, maybe a white and black source, so that we could then go for Enlightened Tutor, and our opponent goes for Imperial Seal. Speaking of tutors, yeah, we could have gone Enlightened Tutor there, but I do like getting out the Loyal Apprentice and starting to knock our opponent's life total down a little bit. See if we get our life total knocked down a bit here. We do not. And there's a Lingering Souls, so well, we're definitely going to go for the Bloodstained Mire, obviously. I think that will be a scrubland for us. Do we want to do something like that during the upkeep, though? Maybe we can go for Arcane Signet and try to get down our Queen Marchesa fairly quickly. Or we could use this for the Skull Clamp again, seeing as how we've got great token producers. Yeah, I'll go for the Lingering Souls here and try to get into another land straight off the top. And then we'll go into our opponent with the Loyal Apprentice again. So 4 damage dealt with that so far, thanks to getting it out on turn 1. And our opponent's got a Mana Crypt of his own, so we might see the Commander here. And we certainly do, so if we get into a black source, maybe an oubliette. But we'll need double black for that. I think we've more chance of getting the Anguished Unmaking. Yeah, we might have to go Enlightened Tutor into Queen Marchesa over the next few turns, so we'll bin the oubliette here, unfortunately. And this time we do lose the flip, so during the upkeep, seeing as how we're struggling on colours, we'll have to go for the Arcane Signet and hope that our opponent doesn't have any artifact removal. Or maybe, seeing as how we're not getting out the Queen Marchesa this turn anyway, Skull Clamp's probably a better idea, because I'd rather make lands than something that our opponent can blow up. So we'll go for the Skull Clamp again here, and we'll just whack the spirits. Alright, and getting into another land already. So in that case, do we want to go Transgress the Mind and have a look at our opponent's hand? I think that would be a good idea for us. Okay, a Worm Coil Engine and a Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh. I've run up against this opponent a lot and they always seem to get into the fast mana, unfortunately for us. Good to know they've got a Dreadbore waiting in the wings. So they can get down Worm Coil Engine next turn. Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh as well. Yeah, I think we just go for the Worm Coil Engine. We can always go Anguished Unmaking onto either one of those, so we might as well save ourselves a little bit of damage. And we'll just hold these creatures back. Won't block the Nicol Bolas this turn, because if we go for Queen Marchesa next turn, then the Nicol Bolas is going to swing in and take the Monarchy from us, so we will want to chump with the Spirit. So they do swing in and deal 4 points of Commander to us. Okay, and we know what they drew into this turn, a Thief of Sanity. So it looks like they're going to be taking the Monarchy away from us, unfortunately. Unless we want to hold tight on the Anguished Unmaking. Although we will get a Thopter token, won't we, if we... Yeah, we don't have to attack him with that, so we will be able to chump block both. So let's still go for the Queen Marchesa. So we become the Monarch. We don't want to kill either one of these 1 toughness creatures, so we'll put the clamp on Queen Marchesa. If she goes down to some kind of destruction spell of some form, then we will still get the card draw from that. And there we go, getting the Thopter, just holding those back as chump blockers. And we will draw into another land as well. And there's the Ancient Tomb, so we're likely to see the Nicol Bolas here. And there it is. Going for the plus on that immediately. Target opponent exiles a card from the top. And you can cast it without paying the mana cost, so they get rid of our Loyal Apprentice. So we can still chump and keep the Monarchy here. Although they're only swinging through with 1 creature anyway. So, like I said, we'll just chump. And now they've only got 1 card in hand, and... yeah, I've just updated the client. I've complained about this before, but the reveal window is off the screen for some reason, so... it's very difficult to keep track of what's actually in your opponent's hand. I think it might be a land, I'm not sure. Anyway, losing the flip to the Mana Crypt. And there's a D-Spark, that's really nice, so we'll throw down a land. And we'll attempt this D-Spark, I think. Only 1 source of white mana, unfortunately. But we'll go for D-Spark. And land in that, so they didn't have counter magic clearly. And now we can use the flashback ability of the Lingering Souls. And I think... yeah, our opponent's going to swing in with both. I think we just need to take advantage of the Skull Clamp, draw a couple more cards here. So we'll kill off one of the spirits, and we've got a land to make next turn. Let's put that back onto the Queen Marchesa. And we've got Collective Brutality now as well. So we could get rid of the Thief of Sanity with that. Can also check for counter spells if we want to, although if they've got a counter spell they might use it on that anyway. thanks to having to use the floating mana from the mana crypt, we couldn't hold the 3 toughness on Queen Marchesa. We had to put the skull clamp back on there, so couldn't swing in towards the 2-2. This deck just tends to be a case of stabilising the early to mid game though, which I think we're doing quite nicely, so we'll just chump like that. And our opponent seems to have got into a big spell straight off the top here, and then deciding against it. And then just deciding to transform straight away, the Nicol Bolas the Ravager, drawing some cards. And yeah, really wish we had the oubliette at this point. And we lose the flip again, could do with gaining some life really. Let's go Collective Brutality here. And I'm going to go for revealing their hand and the -2/-2 here. So we'll choose the targets, pay the mana, and I'm going to get rid of the Arena Rector because I don't think this game is going to go on long enough for that to be relevant. Plus we've got a Planeswalker in hand. There's a Burgie as well, which is noteworthy. Dreadbore can go away because we might be casting the Obnixilis sometime soon. Play the Smouldering Marsh, untapped thanks to the 2 basics. And still missing white mana unfortunately, so we'll have to go Anguished Unmaking onto the Nicol Bolas. And then let's finally start swinging in at our opponent. Running low on tokens for this Skull Clamp now, but it has drawn us into a lot of cards. And obviously the Monarchy draws us cards as well. We can keep an eye on our opponent's hand with the Inquisition of Kozilek. And they do not get bolted by the Crypt. I think it would be a good idea to blow up that Crypt next turn maybe. Okay, a Phyrexian Metamorph, so maybe the Disenchant will have to go on there instead. Yeah, coming down as a Queen Marchesa, so he will gain the Monarchy there. And using the last card in hand, that is the Harnfell Horn of Bounty, which is a really good one. Discard a card, exile the top 2 cards, and you can play them. So giving us multiple threats to worry about here. Doubt they're going to turn in sideways with the Queen Marchesa at least. Oh, they are. Okay, willing to trade the Monarchy back and forth apparently. So why don't we go for sacrificing this and drawing a card. We might get Lightning Bolt. No, we get a Windswept Heath instead. And we're going down to 7, unfortunately. Our opponent draws a card. And now we're actually at risk of losing to our own Mana Crypt, which is always a risk. We do get a token that we can clamp if we want to. And there's an Ancient Tomb, which isn't all that great if you are running low on life. We do have a white source in Windswept Heath though, so let's go for a white source. And that can just be a plateau for us. So, how's about Disenchant on the Mana Crypt? Just so they've got less mana. Maybe should do it on the Horn, but I'll go for the Mana Crypt so they've got less mana. And then we can Obnixilis on their Phyrexian Metamorph maybe. So we'll go for the Obnixilis first of all. Get rid of their Queen Marchesa so they don't start gaining assassin tokens of their own. And then it can be the Disenchant. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to go for Inquisition of Kozilek or the Skull Clamp yet. Yeah, I don't actually... Yeah, we don't know what card that is, do we? Thanks to the Monarch. So, yeah, we will swing in with both here. And they're going to have a card to discard to the Horn either way. Maybe giving them 2 cards to discard to it is not great. But the Inquisition of Kozilek could just be a land anyhow, so... Yeah, let's go for the Clamp onto the Assassin token. Okay, Bastion Protector is a buff on our commander and it should keep it around longer. We've also got the Urborg, so that makes the Ancient Tomb playable. Obviously Bedevil is more removal for us as well. I was hoping for removal off that Skull Clamp. Our opponent going for a big mana spell. This might just be the commander. No, it is Amenartu's Augury. Unfortunately still managing to get off a big spell, even though the Mana Crypt went down. And they got the Tibalt Cosmic Imposter, as well as a land. And then blowing up our Skull Clamp with a Pillage. We've got Firemind Vessel as well. And then exile a target artifact or creature. That will get rid of our Queen Marchesa. Yeah, so argument to be made for leaving the Mana Crypt alone in hindsight, because we could have bolted them down to 0, assuming that we can outrace them. Because we've obviously got our Mana Crypt to worry about as well. And we do get bolted by this one. There is a Distress, which is even more hand disruption for our opponent. Let's go for another card draw with Obnixilis. Okay, there is a Liliana of the Veil. So we could go for our Commander and a Bastion Protector here. I do want to bedevil our opponent though. I want to bedevil the Tybalt specifically. So I don't think we're destined to win this one, unfortunately. I think our opponent is just about stabilised, and the disenchant onto our own Mana Crypt might have been the way to go in hindsight. But we'll get down our Commander, and we are already the Monarch, of course. So we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed that we don't get bolted next turn. Because if we don't get bolted and our opponent doesn't get a blocker down, we could throw down the Bastion Protector. And that could see us through to victory. We could even get a blocker out of the way with the Path to Exile now. So, yeah, whether or not we win this game is in the fate of a coin flip. And they discarded a Grim Monolith to the Horns, so they've got access to Glenelendra Archmage, which isn't the worst thing, actually. There is Talisman of Indulgence as well. We do have the ability to get rid of Glenelendra potentially with the Liliana of the Veil as well, though. Oh good, Teferi, Temporal Archmage, my favourite, down to 0 cards in hand at least, but managing to take some card advantage from Teferi by plussing. And our Urborg helping them out with the Ancient Tomb, not having to take life to that. They are not holding up mana for the Glenelendra Archmage, which is a blessing. So they do have a card in hand, but don't have any mana at the moment. But whether or not we survive this depends on if we win this, so we'll go tails, because it never fails until it does. We lose the flip there. So, yeah, like I said, the disenchant seemed to be fairly ineffectual towards them. I was hoping that it would keep them from casting a big spell, but they managed to get the Aminatu's Augury anyway. I don't know my opponent's deck well enough to know what big spells that they play. If I did, then probably could have counted that out, but disenchant onto my own Mana Crypt probably would have been the way to go there, and I dare say that we could have stabilised from there. Regardless, that was a good one, a good couple of games I think, so hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.